This is
Positively Hygiene
with your host, Amber Lovatos
Amy Prenti
and Angela Doe. Listen on as we dive into the positive of dental hygiene. If y'all hear me shivering through this podcast, is because Angela lowered the AC super low.
I didn't touch it. You touched it.
No,
I wanted it lower.
Probably.
I like it cozy. So I've learned to give office managers some grace. And that's only because of my experience as an office manager. So at my previous job for many, many years, I also, as being the main hygienist there, I wasn't the office manager, of everything, but I was the clinical operations manager, but pretty much acted like an office manager, where when I left, people were like, who's going to be the office manager? And I, now knowing the different, it was a small office. It was 10 people. Max, I guess 10 people I would quote unquote manage. But I learned a lot. I learned, how things run in the front, the back, all together, scheduling, insurance, everything. And so when sometimes there's communication that's not met when I'm temping or at a different practice, I don't get upset, because I know that they're juggling different things. And that sometimes it can get missed, as long as it's not payroll or something. Then it's okay. It's okay because they're going through a lot. Or if there's days where maybe they're a little bit more testy, it could be because something they had to deal with a patient. I've gone through a lot as an office manager. I wasn't a perfect office manager, so by no means, I learned a lot along the way too. I had people call me mean, that I was I wasn't even an office manager at this point. I was just training people, and someone told the office manager at that time that I was one of the meanest people they have ever met. And certainly I learned my route on how to manage as well, because I didn't go to a class. I didn't do a business class for it. I sort of learned along the way, and I learned from what I saw, and some people's tactics weren't the best, but I didn't know any better. So that's what I did. So it was a lot of trial and error. And also on top of that, every person is different, right? Every person communicates differently. So you have to change yourself, because it was a little bit of HR too. Yeah. You have to be able to please in a way, and make people happy. So I was never the best. And eventually it got tiring for me. It wore on me to where I just wanted to focus on being a hygienist.
I was at a Home Goods this week, and the manager screamed at me and my husband. So basically we went up to pay, and we're like, hey, we're going to get a sofa. And the guy at the register says, oh yeah, just get one of those cart things, the flatbed carts, and pick it up. And I was like, okay, cool. So he and I went over there and we picked up the sofa, and the manager's like, don't do that. We're going to get in trouble. I could get in trouble for that. And we're like, well, I mean, we're just doing what we were told. We thought the guy was going to help us, but he said, do it yourself. So we're doing it ourselves, Anyways, so she picks it up with one of her employees, and she tells her employees, she's like, you know what? You have this problem. You have this problem where you don't know how to put things down straight. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, I would not let her talk to me like that. I was already not okay with her telling me, getting mad at us for doing something we were already told. And then there's some other employees rearranging stuff. She's like, what are y'all doing? And they're like, what? And she's like, ugh. And she makes us them, they're always doing something, or bothered. And then they go outside and help us put the sofa in their truck. And two of the girls are lifting it up, and it's 2 men. I'm no, you too. The third one, you gotta put hands on too. Very kind of aggressive kind of communication, and
in front of customers too.
In front of customers, I was like, I'm gonna leave you a negative review. That's what I want to do, because I feel these employees probably can't speak up or say anything. And I understand safety, right? But there is a way to communicate with people where you can be safe, but also respectful.
Yeah.
We are adults. I would treat you with respect. but you gotta treat me with respect too.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like the passive aggressive, like, like comments to me. That's just how people are like, oh, maybe that's just how she is. I'm like, I don't care. I had a boss who, well, she actually wasn't my boss. I had a coworker who was very, very aggressive, and did become get into a leadership role. And people were like, well, that's just, how she is. I do
That's not an
not care.
excuse.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't know any better because I just see, as you're saying this, I'm like, that could have been me, but I just didn't know any better. And I needed someone to tell me, like, hey, that's
Yeah.
not right.
And I'll say, like, when I started off as director, I was director of a nonprofit dental clinic. I was also clinic coordinator at University of Texas where I worked. So I have experience in leadership, and I've been president and chair of committees and all sorts of things. Being the director of a nonprofit, of managing, hygienists and assistants was tough. The dentists were the easier ones, if I'm being honest. They were the easier ones. And there were things where I, like, for sure, I had to check myself, and I was like, ooh, that's on me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I, let my emotions get the best of me. Yeah, it was tough, but I also will say it's hard coming in as the new person. For me, like, it was that they had employees there that had been there a long time. All of them were hired by the person who started the clinic. That person was also the person who hired me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't replacing her. She was choosing to leave. And so it was very interesting because they, you know, liked her so much, loved her, and didn't like me as her replacement.
Yeah.
And I don't think they necessarily gave me the grace. But I am somebody who is a change maker. I am somebody who's like, hey, here's some problems. Here's some things we need to do to improve. We could do to improve them.
Yeah.
And they didn't like that. And maybe that was my fault. Maybe I came in too hot. Wanting to improve things or change things. I don't know, but I do think that. Well, I'll tell you what. The thing was hard. Like, they would go out and they would have lunch without me, and it was a small team. It was like 4 of us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And they would talk about how, like, they were all going to go out and, like, do things, and then they wouldn't include me. And that was, like, hard for me emotionally. And I remember I would, like, come to you and I would cry. I'd be like, what did I do? Like, why do they hate me so much?
Yeah.
It was such a hard role. And I'm like, I don't want to be the martyr, because I know that I definitely made mistakes, and I had to learn and grow and be better. And I think I did get better as I, like, learned. But yeah, it was also really hard. Like, the team was just, sometimes they weren't very nice to me. I don't think that they gave me grace. And towards the end, though, I ended up hiring, like, new staff, and, like, they were my team. And things were so great. Like, Daisy, I would hire Daisy in an instant. When I have money, I would hire that girl, and she knows it. She knows I would hire her. Yeah, so it was different and interesting, because, like, there was one team member specifically who I knew didn't like me, and I really tried to give her grace and be on her side and do these things. At the end, she just quit on us without notice. It was just very, very, I would say, like, a hard time. I wasn't perfect, and I knew there were moments that I had to check myself, and I had to apologize to them for not being better. But it did teach me to give people grace, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely people that I wish I could go back and apologize to, but they ended up leaving. So, like, how I got into my position. So I was a dental assistant first there, and then became a hygienist. And so I was like, I knew everyone there. Like, I was buddy. I was like, I would go out to lunch with people, or people would ask me to go out to lunch. And then it was when I got into my clinical operations manager position, which I don't even know if that was my official title. That was the title I gave myself. And then new people started coming aboard. And then no one would invite me to lunch because I was the boss, sort of saying. But I was her. I was like, do they not want to, like, hang out with me, talk to me? But then I had to, like,
there does need to be those boundaries.
Yeah. Then I realized, no, it's because they don't want to hear me. They don't want me to hear, like, their private stuff, which I get. But that took a little bit of time to get used to.
It's interesting. I worked with somebody who, we were both in leadership positions, and she was really close to one of the people there, and it would blind her in her decision making. When that person
Yes.
would make, I was like, nope, that's wrong. That's not okay. No, well, that's going to hurt her feelings.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm like, but that's not fair. Like, would we allow somebody else to do that? We wouldn't,
I think that's definitely the hard part with smaller offices. People knowing that friend boundary and that
yeah,
business coworker boundary.
yeah,
Because definitely I sense that like amongst like coworkers and themselves amongst the team, but I would feel that way too about some people.
yeah,
Like I would like want to excuse someone a little bit more or give them more grace than someone else.
yeah,
It can be a blurry line when it's a small team.
yeah. It's tough. And then I've worked with teams where like you can be a little bit of both, right? But you still have to know like where to draw the line. Like, you still have to be respectful. You can't like cross that disrespectful line like
Yeah.
with your boss, right? But you can be a team and you can still have some sort of friendship as long as you still have that respect.
Yes, when I was a dental assistant, I had the perfect team where we hung out outside of work. We went to lunch together, but when we were at work, we respected each other.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe that's because, well, my husband's a dentist. And so when I'm at work, it is not Lon. It's not like, I call him Kitty. He's not Kitty, right? It's Dr. Wynn,
Yeah.
And maybe I don't agree with everything, like the way he says things at the office. Though I wouldn't say those things the way that he says them. But he's Dr. Wynn. I gotta listen to what like what Dr. Wynn says, and having that respectful boundary. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's like I forget. Or not that I forget, but I definitely feel more comfortable, and I like will do things that I don't think I would normally do with somebody else. Like, for example, I was seeing a patient, and I just kept going over the child, like asking him questions, and he's like, "Do you need something?" Kind of like, he's like, "Do you need me right now?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, I'm done taking the X-ray. He's like, "Okay, did you take full series?" No. He's like, "Okay, go take the full series." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And so then I go, I take the full series. I'm like, dumb. And then I go back to him, and he's like, "Yes." I'm like, "Oh, like I'm done." He's like, "Okay, do you need me to do it right now?" He was like with the patient. I was like, "Oh no, I guess I thought that you were gonna come now." Like I don't know. My brain doesn't work around him. And yeah. I mean, duh. Like,
You're like on your A game, but not on your A game.
yeah, exactly. It's just like, hey, and normally I would probably go to an assistant first and tell them like, hey, like, what does Dr. Wynn need to know where the procedures are? Because I don't work there regularly. I was just like helping out. So yeah,
That's funny.
yeah. But even so, like, I do try to have like the respectful, like, he is Dr. Wynn. I'm going to treat him like I would any other dentist. And so, but no, but that is a hard like boundary to cross, and I probably wouldn't work with him full time, because I think that maybe if he did some things that I think it might carry over to home, if he did something at work that bothered me,
Yeah.
it is hard. No, but I think both. Like, I don't think we should give some sort of form of grace. But if you're a manager, if you're somebody in a leadership position, you also need to learn how to check yourself. You need to learn to think about the other person's perspective. Why is your team acting this way? Why maybe does your team feel this way?
Yes. Sometimes it's internal. I mean, it's not the team that's the problem, but something within the management system. And
Yeah.
I've had to check myself.
Yeah. So both, right? I will say, like, managing is hard. We went to school for dental things, not to like manage people, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't.
I have to say, like, what I did enjoy about it was that if I didn't have a patient, I had something to do, or like, it's great seeing patients, but it's also nice to have a little break from being in that position all day. So I like that I was able to have both responsibilities, and I like knowing how things work and the inner workings of things. I like learning more. But yeah, so I was glad to have that position. It just made it hard over time to be able to balance both and take care of both.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, like, I read some stuff on Facebook. And sure, I don't know both sides of the story, but some office managers are really mean.
Yeah.
And actually, I think it's better to have an office manager with a dental background versus some
Oh, 100%.
don't.
Yeah.
And then they're trying to,
Tell you what to do.
Yeah, when it doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
So that I do appreciate people having like leadership roles that have a dental background, because that makes communication a bit easier. And we're talking about things, have a better understanding.
The current nonprofit that I volunteer at, the manager is one of my best friends. I was maid of honor at her wedding. The only time I was ever maid of honor was at her wedding, which I don't high school together. And when I initially started working there, like more seriously, I really didn't want to, because I was afraid it was going to impact our friendship. Because I know how hard that can be. And she's actually a really good boss.
Yeah.
That it did not at all. She didn't micromanage. She obviously did her job, made sure we were doing our job. Yeah, she wasn't at all like that. And so I really enjoyed working with her and for her. And I also felt like she would come to me on things that I have like an area of expertise. Like she reached out to me recently, actually, and she asked me that she had a patient, and she asked me about signs for abuse and what I would do in this like particular situation. And I was able to give her advice. And so I appreciate that. I was like, even as like, like her employee, she would still know that I have knowledge, and I can be of support in other ways. She would help. She'd say like, "Hey Amber, I need help recruiting volunteers, or we need help doing this, or what do you think about that?" And like, I appreciated that.
Yeah, she had respect for you, which yes, of course. But just saying, from like the office manager or a managerial position to employee, I know some offices aren't blessed with that, and certainly sometimes it can be hard to talk to them as well, or harder approach, because they have this higher position. So you think maybe like you can't tell them exactly what you're feeling because of job in jeopardy.
Yeah.
That can be hard, but then I also think that's sort of a red flag too.
I actually told one of my bosses, I called her out. And she's one of my favorite bosses now.
Yeah.
But when she was kind of rude to me, she made me cry. And I basically told her, like, I work really hard for you. I do a good job for you. And like, I don't deserve for you to talk to me or treat me this way or be this way. She'd gotten upset over something like really, really silly. And, and I'm like, I was just trying to be helpful. I wasn't like, it's not like I did something like wrong. And she like wanted to talk about it in that moment. And in that moment I was like, no, like I'm going to cry. Like I need to like go.
Yeah.
Anyways, but I told her, I was like, that I didn't appreciate how she talked to me, and, I do well by her and blah, blah. Anyways, at the end of the day, she sends me a text message and she tells me that she's sorry, that she apologized, and that she understood like where she was wrong. And she asked me she's like, can you be my checker? Can you check me? If you see that I'm out of line, if you see that I'm like being irrational, can you let me know? Like, call me out, basically.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, okay. And I like, since then I loved working with her, and I have the highest respect for her. She was a tough boss in the sense that she had high expectations of you, but she always let you know what those expectations were. Now, whether you measured up, that was up to you.
Yeah.
I was willing to like be up for the challenge and measure up to what she wants. She pushed me in a very good way. She was a great mentor. She was obviously not perfect. None of us are, but she did so much for me in my career. I learned so much from her, and I always appreciate like that maturity that she had in that moment to be like, I'm sorry, I'm wrong, and in the future, if this happens again, let me know.
And I think that shows how I love that story, because sometimes we can't see what the other person sees, or we're going through something where we don't know how we're reacting affects the other person. And like, two people communicate differently, right? Or there's the whole those 5 love languages book, right? We all have a different way in feeling appreciated. Maybe something, it's like you want your office to give you a gift. That's how you feel appreciated. Maybe you want them to tell you good job every day. That's how you feel appreciated. Everyone's different. And so sometimes when things get frustrating, or you don't understand something, it's because of that communication.
Yeah.
And there is a way to approach it. I think it was great that you're like, wait, time out, because if you were to get in the conversation at the height of your emotions, that could have been completely different than maybe, an hour later. So I always encourage that, to talk in a respectful manner, just to understand, because maybe you were told to do one thing that you didn't want to do, but then there was a reason behind it that you don't know about.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be able to know until you had that conversation.
I think we also all have things going on in our life that we just don't know about, right? And so it could be a fluke. It could be like this one time she had a bad day and this is why she acted this way, right? And so we correct that.
Yeah.
But I'm also the type of person to be like, hey, I'd rather talk about it than, because I have two meters. I have the very extreme, like, let's tackle this on right now and fix it, or I'm gonna cast you out and I'm not gonna talk to you ever again. Like I'm like quick to like set those boundaries and be like, okay, you showed me, and especially like if you are not significant in my life, like if you're not a close friend, if you are not a family, if you're not a coworker, if you're somebody from social media who I kind of know in passing and you show me who you are, I'm gonna believe you that first time. And that will be the last interaction that I have with you, like openly. That's how I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that that's like a right thing to be, but
Let me call you out on that. No, I'm kidding.
yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I'm 37 now, or almost 37. I've got a family, I've got a husband, I got plenty of problems. I don't have time for passive aggressive nonsense. Like, I don't have time for drama. I don't have time for you to tell me indirectas. I don't know how to say indirectas in English, but like jabs, to throw jabs at me and be like, ha ha ha. Nah.
That's like passive aggressive.
Yeah, that's a passive aggressive comments. Yeah. No. Or to do me wrong and waste my space, my mind space. Nope. I ain't got, no. I'm trying to live a good life here.
Yeah.
I'm getting close to 40, which is crazy, right? Like at this point, like, is that where midlife crisis happen? Because that's how I'm feeling right now. I just don't want to waste any time dealing with nonsense if I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
On the other side of that, if I think there's a problem, I'm like, let's figure it out. You and I are really good about that with each other.
Yeah.
I will say, like, we are really good with giving each other grace. And when I act out or you act out or we're in our moods, we know that it's not personal.
Yeah.
Like, I know that, like, if I say something and then maybe it's aggressive, you know that I didn't mean it aggressively.
Yeah.
Right.
Or if I'm short with you, it's just because, like, I'm going through something, so I don't want to talk a lot.
Yeah. And so, like, I give you grace in those senses that I know that none of it is personal.
Yeah.
At the same time, like, don't have many fights, but one time we had like a, I don't remember. It was in San Antonio. Do you remember? No. Oh, it was years ago. But I don't even remember what it was. Maybe it was a post. I don't remember. We had driven from Houston to San Antonio. It was a long drive. I was tired. And maybe it was an email. I don't remember. You wanted to do something, like get that work done that night. And I was just like, Angela, I just need to like sleep. Or I don't even know. It was like, I was just like really, really tired and you like wanted to get the work done and you were like pestering me about it.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I know I pester you sometimes.
And then the next day and I was like, okay, fine, Angela. And I did it. And you're like, no, it's fine. I was like, no, it's fine, Angela. I'm going to do it. And so I ended up doing it the next day. I think like maybe you apologized and I was like, and then I don't remember. So I was like, no, I think I was just, I told you, I was like, I was just tired. Like I needed a moment. I was going to do it. I just needed a moment to like breathe before doing it in that moment. And then like when you were pestering me about it, I was just like, fine, then I'm not going to do it.
And then for me, it's like, I need to get it done. And that's why like being an office manager was hard for me. Cause it's like, if I had 10 things to do, I wanted to finish it right then and there.
Yeah.
But then I got 5 patients to see.
And so I think, that was years ago.
I don't remember. Yeah. I mean, like I vaguely remember, but not like as a fight, but just like, we were like a tiff.
And so, but we were able to talk about it, right? And now we both know that I need a moment first to get to the work, and you like need to tackle things on, right? Really good about talking about those things.
We learn each other's styles.
Yeah.
And that's what you learn like after being with coworkers for a while too. You learn how they communicate or how they train. I had to train dental assistants or a little bit of dental hygienists, and it took a while, but I started to like learn that everyone learns differently and give them different avenues and how to learn. But I know like for some dental assistants that made it frustrating because they're like, oh, 3 people are telling me 3 different things. And I'm like, hey, the only reason we're telling you 3 different things is because we're just sharing with you what worked for us, but you pick what is going to work for you.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully, I mean, this whole conversation is not to tell you, like, if you're in a bad situation, if you're a toxic situation, if somebody's disrespectful to you, like, this is not to say, like, stay there. No, not at all. Yeah. Not at all. But to, like, I think give people grace is important. But if it's disrespectful, if it's unsafe, then no. Like, cut it out, because they also have responsibility to grow and check themselves, especially for people who are in leadership. That is their job. We'd love to hear from you all. Do you love your office manager? Do you hate your office manager? Send us your stories.
Are you the office manager?
Are you office manager? Do you have leadership in your office, right? Are you like lead hygienist? Yeah, I'd love to hear. And if anybody needs advice on your, we'll keep you anonymous. Let us know. Tell us your story. Maybe you have good ones. Maybe you have bad ones. Maybe you have like juicy ones.
Yeah. Let's hear that.
I'll tell. Okay, my last story of office manager, Maxine Cordova, who was my co-author of my children's book, also dental hygienist. The first practice I worked at as a dental assistant, she worked there. And she was initially assistant, and then they moved her to the front, and then they made her office manager. And she had to boss me around. And I was horrible to her. I was horrible. I gave her attitude. I didn't want to listen. We were 19. We were both 19. And I was like a few months older than her. So I think that it was karma. For me, like later on when I became a non-office director, like the reason that sometimes my staff was out of, a little not so nice to me was probably because I was not so nice to Max. So Max, I love you. I have paid for my sins. Thank you for listening to Positively Hygiene.
Join us every Tuesday for a new episode.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram for the opportunity for how you can contribute to our podcast.
And follow and review Positively Hygiene on Apple and Spotify podcast.